I think you know that USAID has focused a lot on value chain development and in particular, inclusive value chain development. We're really interested in how we can use value chains as a means of, as a strategy for promoting growth, which I know you're very concerned about, but also a strategy that is inclusive such that it reduces poverty. And I'm just wondering, from your research, how do you or how would you define inclusive value chain development?
I think that the topic of inclusive value chain development is part of the evolution of how global value chain research has been moving. And just as a backdrop to defining it, which I will do in a second, in the last 3 to 5 years, many international organizations have adopted global value chains approaches because they're looking for ways to link globalization and development. And I think USAID's work on value chain development was a front runner of how to bring in a lot of these questions for countries and the different clienteles that you're serving. But it's worth noting that the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, UN Economic Commission on Latin America, Asia Development Bank, ILO, and others have all been looking to the global value chains research framework as a way to help address these questions about, given a global economy, how can countries pursue inclusive development paths? I think from a country point of view and from a development perspective, what inclusive value chain development means has to be analyzed at several levels. Many countries first start with the industries that are most important to them. It might be agriculture, it might be extractive products, or different types of manufacturing. And they ask this question, how can we be part of the global economy? And so the one first step in thinking about inclusion is entry into a global value chain. And for many countries, entry they think of in terms of export production, whether it's Mexico's maquila industry beginning in the mid-1960s, or Costa Rica and other countries more recently trying to promote export processing zones as a way to get into high-tech manufacturing. I think the idea of exports being an entry point is important. But from a development point of view, in terms of this notion of inclusiveness, that's not enough. What countries are now saying is, even if we get into these export industries, they want to have local firms be involved in those industries. So part of what we do with value chain analysis is we look at the global value chain and then we say, how are the particular countries we're looking at plugged into those value chains? Which areas are they actively involved in? So I think a second level of inclusiveness is the participation of local firms in those chains. I think a third level is the whole backward and forward linkage question inside countries. Countries are interested in moving up and down the value chain in terms of capturing more of the activities from R&D and design on the one side to actually being able to brand their own products. And in terms of small, medium enterprises and smallholder farmers, which is a big concern to many developing agencies, I think the way people are framing the question from the global value chain point of view is, how can small, medium enterprises or smallholders participate in the internationalization of global value chains? And typically they're doing so by linking to the other companies in the chain, whether they're multinationals or big domestic firms. And so many of the inclusiveness from small, medium enterprises is supplying products as niches and chains, or going to the high value added segments like you might see in software. One final point about global value chain inclusiveness, I think increasingly people are asking questions where the industries aren't necessarily global in nature, where exports are only part of the production from a local economy. And if we're looking especially at SMEs, small, medium enterprises, often they're producing for the national market, but I think the value chain dynamics are very similar. They're still exporting in structures where you have intermediaries or large buyers, and the lessons that we're getting from global value chain analysis can also be applied in many cases to national value chains in terms of how to get smaller local companies involved in those chains.